Thank you again, everyone, for attending and giving us, around half an hour of your time. We really do appreciate it, and we do intend to make this full of value for you and impart a lot of information. My name's Adair. I'm the National Sales Director here at Microchannel. More importantly, we have Magnus from SignUp Software. SignUp Software are the owners, developers, and supporters of the AP automation solution for BC and NAV that you're going to see today. Magnus will introduce himself shortly, but let me just quickly run through the agenda today. So one of the things that is very important is understanding the business behind the solution. Obviously, if you're going to be using this solution in your business, you need to be assured of the support of it and I guess the R&D that continues to go into it. Microchannel, myself and Microchannel, we've been working with SignUp Software and Exflow for more than a decade, and having that support, in this case, local support, for whatever it's worth. Both myself and Magnus are in Sydney, but we have team members throughout the eastern seaboard of Australia. So Magnus will introduce himself shortly and SignUp Software, touch on the typical challenges that Exflow face day to day and what the benefits of the solution are. But really the core of today is going to be inside the solution, giving you a real hands-on feel of the solution and understand the benefits of it by actual demonstration. Again, we won't be able to go into massive depth, but we can obviously do that follow-up if what you see today excites you and for your organization. Let's get into it. Magnus, please introduce yourself and go forward.
Thank you, Adair. Thank you. And hi, everybody. And again, welcome to this webinar about the power of AP automation. Some of you might already know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Magnus Perry, and I'm heading up SignUp Software Asia Pacific operations. I joined the company in 2010, and I have well more than 20 years experience in the Microsoft Dynamics industry, actually from the very second version of NAV, version 2.0. So SignUp Software is a publicly listed company. We're listed on the Nasdaq First Growth Stock Exchange, and the company is headquartered in Stockholm, Sweden. That's where I'm from as well. We have offices all across the world, and our Asia Pacific office opened here in Sydney in 2010. We actually also just opened an office in Singapore. One of the key reasons we have been so successful in the APAC market is the fact that we have had local feet on the ground since day one. We're very responsive towards all channels and aspects, whether it might be the customer support or partner support. In Australia and New Zealand, we have over 130 customers, and we work with all major Dynamics partners, such as Microchannel, who is also one of our few preferred partners. SignUp Software is also a Microsoft ISV and co-sell partners. Today, we will have a look at our product Exflow, which is a certified product by Microsoft on all versions of Dynamics from AX 2012 to Finance Operations, as well as for Dynamics NAV 2013 and up to Business Central. You will see the demonstration on the Business Central version today. Exflow has also achieved the status Microsoft Preferred Solution for AP Automation and is available to download on App Source. It's completely built into Microsoft Dynamics, and it's using Microsoft Dynamics' own transactional mechanisms, which greatly reduces the risk for our customers compared to external solutions that rely on integrations. Accounts Payable is by far one of the most consistently broken of all financial processes. Companies tend to be a bit reluctant to fixing these issues as the AP department is typically associated with cash outflows, and you don't want to spend money on that in general. We often see organizations with a very low degree of touchless processing. They are normally manual and paper-based driven with a lot of data entry errors and often have lengthy approval turnarounds. Usually there's nothing that stops an invoice at the gate, so the risk of fraud, paying the same invoice twice, or even paying to the wrong supplier increases. As a result, this often reduces the supplier relationship, which then impacts the operations, of course. Organizations that are purchase order driven but have a manual supplier invoice process often tend to have high number of exceptions, such as price and quantity variances. We actually see a lot of organizations that raise their purchase order at the time of invoice arrival, and we all know that that's completely eliminates the ability to understand and analyze potential liabilities on the balance sheet. avoiding late payment fees, capturing early payment discounts, or launching DPO extension programs, for example, become big challenges that stems from the reduced control and visibility. Businesses that are using Exflow can reduce the cost of invoice processing by more than 80%. But not only efficiency gains are won by automation, digitizing the process builds a great foundation for business intelligence. Increased efficiencies also release time for elevating the role of the back office, enabling staff to focus on more strategic and value-adding tasks. It gives full control and visibility over the entire process. For accounts payable, this can involve closer collaborations with procurement, finance and treasury, supplier relationship management, as well as providing actionable intelligence for risk mitigation, cash flow management, compliance initiatives, and more. Exflow is a Microsoft preferred solution for AP automation. It's built into Business Central and NAV, following the standard user interface that users are already familiar with. Exflow uses the latest technologies such as machine learning and artificial intelligence to further automate coding of invoices. Exflow has a powerful purchase order matching engine, which has been perfected over the last 20 years since it was first released. It can match against purchase order on both 2- and 3-way level and automatically deal with price variances, sending the difference for approval to the business or automatically approve them if they're within the tolerance levels or policy. I'm now going to demonstrate Exflow for Business Central, but first I would like to show you a high-level overview of the process so you understand the concept of the solution. So the process typically starts with your supplier sending a PDF invoice, could be PDF or it could be XML or EDI or any other format, but for this demonstration purposes, I'm going to assume that we get PDF files of invoices sent from our suppliers to a nominated general email inbox, for example, apinvoice@customer.com. Exflow Data Capture is the first instance of the solution that will take care of that PDF file and grab it from the email inbox and do a full interpretation of the invoice image and find the keywords that we have defined that we want to capture. For example, invoice number or invoice date and so on. If for some reason the data couldn't be captured, it will stop in an exception queue, and a user, typically an AP user, would then go in and correct information. When you correct the information, you also teach the system to improve in the future. So the next time you will get an invoice, that correction will result in even higher accuracy. We can capture header level information, only the header information such as the vendor name, the total amounts, the ABN number, and so on. But we could also capture lines if we want to do a full 3-way match. You will also see that in the demonstration today. Once an invoice has been captured correctly, it can then automatically be sent out into Business Central. When it arrives into Business Central, Exflow will take care of it and do the coding of an invoice based on, I mentioned machine learning in the beginning, but we could also use coding templates or even Exflow contracts for recurring invoices. If we have captured the purchase order number on the invoice, we can then do a full 3-way match or a 2-way match, depending on the requirements, where Exflow matches the invoice to the purchase order. If it matches, it can be automatically approved by the system and posted into the ledger. If we have, for example, a price variance, the invoice line will be sent off to an approver for approval. That approver can then log on to a approval portal or directly inside Business Central, and they can then approve the difference on that invoice. Once it's been approved by everyone in the workflow, the invoice can then, via a batch job, automatically be posted into the ledger. And that's where the process stops. And on top of this, we also have a Power BI package that we think is the most important dashboard from an AP KPI perspective. So we look at time to approve, time to pay, and so on. And we can understand the bottlenecks along the way and what we need to improve in the AP department. I'm going to jump into the demonstration, but I would also like to say that Exflow can handle purchase order approval, not only invoice approval. So I'm actually going to start this demonstration by raising a standard Business Central purchase order, and we're going to see how Exflow will take care of that purchase order, send it out for approval, and then we're going to receive the invoices, and we're going to match an invoice against that purchase order that we just raised. So with that, let's kick off and do the demonstration. I'm going to raise a purchase order. And I'm going to buy something for the IT department from Oxygen Networks. And let's say we want to buy 5 HP printers. So I'll put 5 in here. And as a requester or purchase officer, all I need to do then is go and release this purchase order. And then Exflow will send a notification email to the IT manager in this case, which is Richard. And he will then have to go on to either the portal or inside Business Central to do the approval of this purchase request. So I'm now going to log on as Richard. I'm using the portal in this instance, but as I said before, we can also approve documents inside Business Central. So as we can see here, Richard is logged on and he now has a purchase order request to approve. We can see the header information and the lines, and we can also see an image of what he's actually approving. So as Richard, I'm just going to approve this purchase request. And we are now ready for the next step. This is the approval status window. This is typically where the AP team would be working. You can see all the documents, whether they are purchase orders or purchase invoices. You can see the status and you can see the lines. And at the bottom here, we can also see that Richard approved this purchase order request on this date and time. It's got status approved. So the next step is to go and receive the goods. So I'll go into my purchase order. And I'm just going to receive these printers. And we are now done and waiting for the invoice to arrive. The next step will be the Exflow data capture and that's where the suppliers have sent their invoices to that email address, and they've now been picked up by Exflow data capture. So we'll log on to the Exflow data capture user interface. And we can start with the printer invoice that we just raised the purchase order for. This is what it looks like. And I mentioned that we're capturing keywords in the beginning, and you can see the keywords here on the right-hand side. They're all green. That means that this invoice could have been passed through this user interface automatically. No one would ever have to touch it here. But for demonstration purposes, I'm going to click my way through the whole process. For example, if we have an issue here, we would have been flagged with a yellow warning triangle saying that the system can't find the invoice number. All you need to do as a user is then correct the information. So let's say the invoice number is down here. I need to highlight that, and it straight away updates the information. And when I process this invoice, it will remember that for the next time and start looking for the information in this area instead of up here. I'm going to put it back to what it was. Once I'm done here, I'm going to click OK to let this through into Business Central, and we can also deal now with the other invoices. Here we got another purchase order invoice, and in this case, I'm going to do a full three-way match. So I'm interested in capturing the lines here. So to do that, I'm just going to go on the draw button and select my first line, mark out what the layout looks like, PO number, description, quantity, the unit price, and the line total. When I click OK, it's going to capture every single line, regardless of the number of invoice pages. So if you have an invoice with 20 pages, it's going to capture the lines on every single page, like it has done in this case. I'm happy with this. I'm going to let this one through into Business Central, and we can now deal with another 3 invoices I've got as a demonstration scenario. They are non-PO related, so I'm only capturing header information here. these are what we refer to as expense invoices, that is non-PO related. I'm just going to click through OK here. Here's another invoice for internet connection. Click OK. They're all green, so they could automatically go into Business Central. This is an invoice for rent. So I'm going to match this against an Exflow contract. That's why I captured this reference number to look up the contract inside Business Central. Click OK. And that's pretty much it from a data capture perspective. And as you could see, everything was green. So in practice, we could have turned on automation here and no one would see these invoices in this user interface. They would go straight from the supplier into the email inbox all the way into Business Central. So now we'll jump back into Business Central and I'm going to go and get these invoices in using the exception queue or the import form. And we're going to import these documents. Again, I'm clicking buttons, but this would be automated in a production environment. So we've received 5 documents. So let's start with the purchase order invoices. If there would have been an error, the AP user would then see the error in clear text here. For example, duplicate invoice number found in the ledger, or could not find the vendor, for example. But in this case, we're all good to go. So I'm going to go and push this through and create standard open Business Central purchase invoices out of these documents. And that's when they go out for approval, if they require approval. And let's have a look at the non-PO related invoices. As, again, no error, so we can just push these through, but I'm just going to stop here for a second and explain. If you remember in the data capture part, we only captured header information, the total invoice amount, no lines, but Exflow has managed to code this invoice against the general ledger account number. And this invoice has been coded using a coding template where we allocated 50% of the cost over the first line coded against the IT department, which is one of my dimensions, and the second line is coded 50% of the total invoice cost against the sales department. And the last invoice has been matched or will be matched against an Exflow contract. Exflow contracts are very useful for recurring invoices, such as rent. You get an invoice the exact same amount every month, and you expect to get 12 invoices per year, for example. We can then set up a contract and tell Exflow that as long as the invoice comes in and it's within a certain amount and we haven't gone over the total contract value, we can have this invoice automatically approved. If not, it can be sent out for approval. So let's move on and create open invoices out of these. Now, if we look into the approval status, we can see that these invoices have different statuses. The first one has status ready for posting. That can now be posted into the ledger. That was the invoice for the purchase order that we created of the 5 HP LazyJet printers. It should have gone to Richard for approval, but as it was within tolerance levels and matched against the purchase order, it has been automatically approved by the system admin on this date and time, and that invoice can now automatically be posted to the ledger. So if you think about it, take a step back from Exflow data capture. The supplier sent this invoice from their system to the email address. It was picked up by Exflow data capture, could have been automatically processed, sent into Exflow, automatically be posted into the ledger. So no one would actually see this invoice until it shows up on the payment run. That's the level of automation we want to achieve, of course. The other invoice was for my Exflow contract. That was within tolerance levels. It came in at 68.50, so that's been matched against the contract. All good, can also be posted into the ledger. The other purchase order invoice has the status active. If we look at the lines here, we can see that almost all the lines are approved, except for the second line. And we can also see here that the unit cost on the invoice is $251, but my order unit cost was $209. So this has now thrown a price variance. And this invoice line has been sent to Richard for approval. So if we go back to the approval portal as Richard and just refresh this screen, we can now see that we have this Oxygen Networks invoice here. And to give some information to Richard of what he needs to approve, we can see that the top value there is the invoice value, the unit price on the invoice, and the bottom value is the direct cost on the purchase order. If Richard wanted more information, he can also click on the purchase order number here to bring up more information. From here, Richard can choose to reject this invoice. For example, maybe the supplier made a mistake and he just reject it and then write a comment to AP to say, this invoice can be deleted. I'm expecting a new invoice from the supplier with the correct amount. Or he can choose to approve the price variance, which is what I'm going to do now. Richard also has another invoice in his inbox. So if we'll go on as Richard here, we can see that he needs to approve this invoice line. And I should say here that Exflow can handle invoice approval on line level. So Richard is the IT manager. As long as an IT department code, one of the dimensions, has been used on an invoice line, it will be sent to Richard for approval. So I'm going to approve this invoice line to move on to the next step. And we can now sign Richard out and go back to Business Central as an AP user and have a look in the approval status again. We can now see that the purchase order invoice that Richard approved, the price variance, is now ready for posting and can also be posted through Ledger. The other invoice that he approved from Building Connect, that was approved by Richard on this date and time, but because it was coded against the sales department, the second line, Peter is now the approver for that line. So we need to log on the portal as Peter. Let's start with the Building Connect invoice. And again, this line needs the approval. So Peter will just go approve. And let's have a look at the other invoice from the catering company. Let's say you want your users, your approvers, to do the coding. That's very simple in Exflow. For example, let's say that we want to split this invoice line into two. If the user has the access rights to do this, they can easily do it in the web portal. And we can then code the second line against, for example, the same general ledger account number. But let's say we decided together with Richard that we're going to split this cost. So I'm going to code it against the IT department. And when I click approve, I'm now using something that we call Exflow dynamic workflows. That means that when we go back into the approval status, we can see that, first of all, the Building Connect invoice was approved and is now ready for posting. But the catering invoice, even though Peter approved that, because he coded against a department code that wasn't his responsibility, Exflow has now added Richard to the workflow. So Richard will then have to go and approve this invoice. So let's go back as Richard. Dynamic workflows is a feature in Exflow. You don't have to use it, but it could be very useful sometimes when you have cost centers and you have cost center owners, for example. So to be able to finalize this invoice, Richard needs to approve his invoice line. And now if we go back into Exflow approval status, we can now see that all the invoices are now ready for posting. That concludes the demonstration today. So I'm going to hand back to Adair. Thank you very much.
Magnus, thank you for that. Thank you for the detail that you provide. I think everyone was quite clear that how real time that was and the detail that you went into there. Also, and I know Magnus made this point, please just note that, again, the automation and efficiency that Exflow provides, basically everything that Magnus showed that could happen automatically. Okay, so I think that is the major, I guess the automation and efficiency is the major benefits that our customers see with Exflow. But The other one that a lot of our customers talk about is just about that accuracy and visibility. You would have seen, and I think it's very important that when you do put in Exflow into an organization, it is built inside Business Central. So users are very familiar with what's happening. It just makes things more automated. But the visibility that you now have and the accuracy that it gives is something that people comment a lot. And just note, everything can be done in Business Central. But again, Sign Up Software with Exflow has created that portal there as well. And we found that many of our customers, they go, wow, that adds another level of efficiency to what is being done in their AP department. But I think that last point there, for those that aren't on Business Central and still on Dynamics NAV, a very important part is that Microsoft certification that, when you are doing your updates twice a year, the Exflow, the AP automation part of your solution will automatically be updated with Business Central as well. So look, I'm hoping those points came across, but I think you did a great job there, Magnus. With regards to, if you're wanting more information, look, obviously, Magnus can go into more details, or some of the other members of Sign Up Software can go into more details and get into more demonstration. Please reach out to your account manager to do that. Some of our account managers are on screen there, but I'm hoping most people on this call will know who their account managers are, and get in touch with them.